You have proven curious, but maybe even more than that, brave. Welcome to part 2 of All About the Necromorphs.
Culture and personality.
Being of an infectious bacterial growth, necromorphs do not display much in personality or culture. The behavior in its entirety is there for the ultimate purpose, to survive, and this is very simplified: infect and spread. To direct this motive with strategy, markers and brethren moons have direct influence on these creature forms, as do some more advanced terrestrial necromorphs that network through a hive mind approach. Being as simple and savage as this biological empire may seem, it still creates for immense diversification among the merged creations of the pathogen and its director or directors. For the strategy to take over and exist becomes inevitably more complex. Some necromorphs form to kill through different methods, which ensures absolute contamination, while others, such as the infectors, are tailored for more or less just that: infecting and super fast assimilation. It is nature and adaptation at its best, and most devastating. They're not just predators or hunters, they are entire organic abominations created to sever life, honing their strength in vast microscopic numbers, but only when in the vicinity of a marker. All in all, one personality trait does remain, and it remains very prominently at that. It is extreme aggressiveness. It seems the marker has no desire or need to take its time once assimilation of a species or species has begun.
Ecology and location.
The necromorph contagion is an extremely hardy life form, capable of withstanding seriously harsh conditions, including those of outer space. Hence, within the variety of an Earth-like atmosphere, it could be found within most conditions, only excluding the most severe, such as within actual lava or similarly hot environments, as well as those on the other end of the scale, where the molecules could become immobile from being frozen, but probably, like in the Thing's case, upon thawing, it would spring back into action.
Physiology and appearance.
According to one chemistry lab report, Heinrich Jagerwald notes,
"The cells most clearly resemble bacteria, with viral behavior. Like bacteria, the organism infects other cells through osmosis, then mutates and reproduces agamagenetically."
A type of asexual reproduction. Also, Professor Jagerwald observes that the bacteria reproduces at an astonishing rate of 20 times within 1 minute. Reflecting on its history, it is a creation at least 65 million years old, and therefore it has had millions of years to learn, adapt, and evolve itself. Or if not the bacteria itself, then perhaps the brethren moons. The bacteria can be transmitted through open wounds or injection-type insertion. It will not mutate live tissue, though may cause paralysis, catatonia, and or loss of breath. Although if a large amount is injected into an organism or implanted onto the brain, full assimilation will begin. Also, a strongly wounded organism, or that which has a weakened immune system, is prone to its transformative effects. If a living person were to ingest this bacteria in a large enough amount, they would then undergo a slow transformation, eventually dying and becoming a feeder type of necromorph. So it seems that the main factor limiting the necrobacteria to dead or weakened organisms is the host's immune system. At this microscopic level, the bacteria alone is actually not that strong or influential. Therefore, a marker using telepathy could deprive a person of sleep, so much so that their immune system would lose its effectiveness, resulting with the bacteria in contact taking advantage. Speaking of a marker's influence, it isn't quite clear to what extremes it can take its electromagnetic waves, but within certain closer range, it can actually morph any dead cells into those of a necromorph, and so presumably could a brethren moon.
the DNA of the bacteria seems to be similar to that of humans. This may not be universal though, but rather the design prepared by the marker and or the brethren moons
when first encountering new promising life for their expansion. It would be interesting to see if the same necrobacteria found on the alien planet Tau Volantis held the same form and was indeed the same at a genetic level. Nonetheless, other earthly creatures have been observed to be tainted by this bacteria with the same crazed, aggressive results. In the humanoid integrated form, for instance, the body is reformed to be fully repurposed for killing, infecting, or both. Most vital or inner organs are converted to produce a tougher, more effective killing machine, be it via the addition of pointies, blades, teeth, and horns, muscles, or highly toxic bile sacs. And since the transformation happens so fast, large amounts of energy are required, creating such high temperatures in the body that can boil the blood. However, this may even be caused directly by signals from a marker to feed energy into the bacteria, increasing the speed of the assimilation, or directly into the assimilation itself. The type of bacteria can be dependent on the individual being infected, the way it's being infected, or on the blueprint frequencies the marker inputs on the dead cells or new assimilation. Now, even though the bacteria assimilates dead flesh, it is still dependent on some degree on that assimilated anatomy, as we don't see disembodied fingers and limbs put on a chase all too often. Therefore, it would appear that stronger destructive impacts on a necromorph would create enough trauma and shock, at least for an amount of time that would allow for an escape, as the bacteria is certainly not all dead. This is going by an example of crushing or slicing up a necromorph to pieces. Thus, the most guaranteed execution here would be burning every part that had been tainted by the bacteria or marker, or simply completely destroying every dead cell possible. Fire, plasma, drastically ranging frequencies, and other destructive elements of this level, in addition to freezing and other causes for immobility, would be the best approach for completely ridding of the infection and vermin composition. Though for quick results, dismembering a necromorph as much as possible will slow or even stop the monster until the actual bacteria can make contact with a new dead host. It seems markers do not have an interest in really powering simple anatomical forms. Back to the host's organs and their position in all of this. It seems destroying the head or brain of the host's body still has much impact, so it is possible that the bacteria still collaborates with the specific functions of different organ or anatomical structures, such as depending on the host's body's nervous system to get it to animate in the first place. And actually the brain here isn't an exception. All this is speculation at best, as it seems the energetic or life wiring that allows the necromorphs to animate and act has a different setup per type. Some can be immobilized or killed by dismembering particular body parts, while it also seems that enough damage and blood loss will do the trick with most. Yet with others you simply have to completely annihilate from existence, or their arms and legs will go after you, such as in the case of a divider necromorph. Therefore, to be a professional contender to these monsters, one must carefully study each necromorph type's combative nature and weakness. One last but important note on the assimilated anatomy is that necromorphs seem to have an ability to see or sense human neuron strands. Therefore, being this perceptive to biological electrical currents, there is very possibly no need for keeping the host's eyes or any other major sensory organs. The altered cells or new organism is able to sense or feel it all out. Returning to the topic of the marker and the algorithms it is knowledgeable of, essentially it is like a biological programmer, a massive computer and battery. Without it, no necromorph can exist. Over all my research, I have come to the conclusion that in order for a marker to be activated, it needs to be in range of a necromoon. And in order for the necromorphs to be activated, they need to be in range of markers or necromoons. If a marker or brother moon is not within range, the necromorphic tissue will lose all initiative, turning into an organic sludge. If a marker is therefore destroyed and the brethren moon is too far away, the outcome will be the same, a harmless necro slime. If no marker is present, but a necromoon is close enough, the necromorph will stay intact and as vicious as ever. If the necromoon arrives at a later time, where the necromorph had already dissipated into a nasty puddle, that wet mass will be reactivated in that form within which it can then ooze about in search of another victim to taint with its corrupt molecules. In order for a marker to be destroyed to the point of no transmission whatsoever, it needs to be completely obliterated, as broken remains will still manage a signal.
So by now you can probably better understand the power behind the moon organism here, and therefore should be able to grasp my theory later on here pertaining to the actual origins of the markers.
Finally, what do necromorphs eat? When no possible future hosts are present, necromorphs will enter a dormant state. This conserves energy using just enough to be aware of any passing living being if such an occasion were to arise. It could therefore be speculated that the bacteria feeds very slowly and or little on the dead cells it has assimilated, and that every time the necromorph has killed and gotten some of the victim's blood or more on itself, this served as food as well. Therefore, necromorph types that may form large or giant mouth parts still make sense, and it is possible that such variations would be energetically even more intense and able to sustain themselves for prolonged periods. If all this is fact in the lore, necromorphs would not be able to exist indefinitely, as the bacteria would have eaten all the remains and then starved. Hence, it is viable that we also have corruption growths for the function of providing nutrition or food to such dormant necromorphs, but even they would eventually wither away. Herein once again emerged the markers, and their ability of generating energy and sending out high electromagnetic frequencies. They could probably provide enough energy to keep necromorphs at least slightly aware for long periods of time. And if we're looking at centuries or longer, the marker could easily remove the frequencies that keep a necromorph active, maybe sending only enough to retain their solid form and then rely on its own awareness of the surroundings until a time approaches when the necromorphs are needed again, during which it would reissue the necessary frequencies, bringing us back to the conclusion that it really is all down to the marker or brother moon, as either way, without it, the bacteria is unable to sustain itself, at least not to this degree of existence. In fact, the marker itself can also be shut down or put to sleep to conserve energy. Alright, Monsterites, you've made it through part 2. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what your favorite type of necromorph is, and prepare yourself for part 3, where things get really fun as we explore the abilities, strengths and weaknesses, similar beasts, power level, and well, also my theory on this necromorphic biological disaster.